Hey there, you look like you could use some help.
Yes, please.
Come on, get in. I'll give you a ride. And dear friends, subscribe to my channel Viral Story Hub. Make my channel famous.
Okay.
Don't travel today. Little poor black girl shouts to billionaire. It turns out that a desperate little girl screams for a billionaire to stop before getting into his car. At first, he ignores her, but what she witnessed moments earlier could save his life. A tragedy, a warning, and a choice that changes everything in this powerful story about grief, fate, and compassion. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments, what time is it and where are you watching from? Let's start. Don't travel today. The shout was high-pitched, raw, and desperate, tearing through the ambient hum of the city sidewalk. Silas stopped cold. He was 40 years old, dressed for warfare in a boardroom, a sharp, perfectly tailored charcoal suit, a dark silk tie knotted precisely at his throat, and a heavy gleaming luxury watch on his left wrist. His hand hovered just inches from the silver door handle of his black Rolls-Royce. He spun around, his posture instantly defensive, his hand splaying open in shock as he tried to identify the threat. Standing just a few feet away on the pavement was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 7 or 8. She was black, with a thick tangle of natural hair, and she was drowning in oversized, heavily tattered layers of clothing. A fraying, dirt-stained blue jacket swallowed her narrow shoulders, and a ragged gray shirt hung down past her knees, the edges frayed and black with streaked grime. She was pointing a trembling finger directly at him. Her eyes were wide, her breathing heavy, as if she had just sprinted for blocks. "Excuse me?" Silas asked, his voice sharp, carrying the instinctive authority of a billionaire unaccustomed to being interrupted. "Where are your parents? I don't have time for—" "Don't get in that car," the girl interrupted, her voice shaking but fiercely stubborn. She didn't lower her hand. "You can't go with him." Silas frowned, his irritation warring with confusion. He glanced around the busy sidewalk. Pedestrians were walking past, keeping their heads down, actively ignoring the interaction. He looked back at the girl. "Look, kid," Silas said, pulling a leather wallet from his inner suit pocket. "I have a board meeting in Chicago in 3 hours. My private jet is waiting on the tarmac. I don't have time to play games. Here, take this and go buy yourself something to eat." He held out a crisp $100 bill. The girl didn't even look at the money. She kept her eyes locked on his. "I don't want your paper. I want you to step away from the car door. If you get in that car, you're going to die, and he is too." Silas froze. The absolute certainty in her small voice sent a strange chill down his spine. He put the wallet away, his analytical mind suddenly on high alert. "What are you talking about?" Silas demanded, his tone dropping, becoming quiet and intense. "Did someone tell you to say that? Is this a corporate stunt? Did one of my competitors pay you to delay me?" "Nobody pays me," she said, lowering her arm finally, though her fists remained clenched at her sides. "I'm invisible. People don't look at me, but I look at them. I sleep in the alley behind the bakery on the corner. I see everything." "And what exactly did you see?" Silas challenged. "I saw your driver," she said, nodding toward the front seat of the gleaming black luxury car. "The man in the suit like yours, but cheaper. He went into the bakery to get coffee 10 minutes ago. I was sitting by the dumpster." "Martin gets coffee every morning before a flight," Silas argued, though he took a half step away from the Rolls-Royce. "That isn't a crime. That doesn't mean the car is going to crash." "He didn't drink the coffee," the girl said. her voice dropping to a somber whisper. His phone rang. He answered it. He listened for a few seconds, and then he dropped the cup. It spilled all over his shiny shoes and the pavement. He didn't even care. He just fell down on his knees. Silas stared at her. He fell down? He sat on the dirty curb, the girl continued, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. He was crying, but not the loud kind of crying, the quiet kind, the kind where your chest stops working and you forget how to breathe. I know that kind of crying, mister. Silas felt the annoyance completely drain out of him, replaced by a heavy, sinking feeling in his gut. What did he say? He said, "She's gone. They couldn't save her," the girl recounted, her voice incredibly steady for a child repeating such heavy words. And then he just stopped crying. He went entirely blank, like a television screen turning off. He stood up, walked over to your big black car and sat inside. He's been staring at the steering wheel for 20 minutes. His soul isn't in his body anymore. Silas turned his head slowly and looked through the immaculate, lightly tinted glass of the Rolls-Royce windshield. Martin, a man who had driven Silas flawlessly for 7 years, was sitting in the driver's seat. His hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were stark white. His face was devoid of color. He wasn't checking the mirrors. He wasn't adjusting the climate control. He was just staring dead ahead at the brick wall of the building across the street, his eyes unblinking and hollow. "If you make him drive you fast on the highway to the airport," the little girl said softly from behind Silas, "he won't see the brakes. He won't see the turns. He won't see the red lights. He's already gone, mister. And if you get in the back seat, you're going with him." Silas felt his heart hammer against his ribs. He was a man of strict logic, a man who built empires on data and calculated risks. But the little girl's observation was undeniable data. Silas walked up to the driver's side window and knocked on the glass. Martin didn't flinch. He didn't look at Silas. He just kept staring into the void. Silas pulled the door handle, opening the heavy door. The chime of the car sounded, breaking the silence. "Martin," Silas said gently. Martin blinked slowly, turning his head as if moving through deep water. He looked at Silas, but his eyes were vacant. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne. I have the route pulled up. We will be at the airstrip in 45 minutes. His voice was a flat, mechanical monotone. "Turn the engine off, Martin," Silas said gently, placing a hand on the man's trembling shoulder. "Sir, the board meeting—" "The meeting is canceled," Silas lied without a second thought. "Turn the car off. Step outside." Martin hesitated, then mechanically reached down and pressed the ignition button. The powerful engine went silent. As Martin stepped out onto the pavement, his knees suddenly buckled. Silas caught him, holding the older man up. The physical contact seemed to break the dam. Martin let out a ragged, agonizing sob, his hands flying to his face. "My wife," Martin choked out, leaning heavily against the side of the luxury car. "The hospital just called. The surgery. She didn't make it, Mr. Thorne. She's gone. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do, so I just got in the car." "I've got you, Martin," Silas said, his own voice tightening with emotion. "You don't have to do anything. You're going home. I'm having a car service take you to the hospital right now, and my personal assistant will handle all the arrangements. You hear me? You don't have to worry about a single thing." Silas pulled out his phone, made a swift, authoritative call, and within 10 minutes, another car had arrived to safely transport his grieving driver. When the street was quiet again, Silas stood alone on the sidewalk beside his empty Rolls-Royce. He took a deep breath, adjusting his charcoal suit, suddenly feeling very foolish in his expensive armor. He turned around. The little girl was still standing there, her hands stuffed into the oversized pockets of her tattered blue jacket. She was watching him carefully. Silas walked over to her, crouching down so he was at eye level with her. Up close he could see the dirt smudged across her cheeks and the profound, world-weary exhaustion in her dark eyes. "What is your name?" Silas asked, his voice softer than it had been in years. "Ruby," she said quietly. "Ruby," Silas repeated. "You saved my life today, and you saved Martin's life. Why did you do it? Why did you care enough to warn a stranger who yelled at you?" Ruby looked down at her battered sneakers, kicking at a loose piece of gravel on the sidewalk. For a long time, she didn't say anything. When she finally looked back up at him, her eyes were swimming with tears. "My mama got a phone call like that once," Ruby whispered, her voice cracking, "about my big brother. He got hurt at work. She got the call and she did the quiet cry. Then she put me in the back seat of her car to drive to the hospital." Silas felt a heavy knot form in his throat. He stayed perfectly still, listening. She was driving, but her soul wasn't in her body anymore either. Ruby continued, a tear slipping down her dirt-smudged cheek. "She didn't see the red light. She didn't see the big delivery truck. I was small, so the back seat kept me safe. But my mama, she didn't make it." Silas closed his eyes for a brief second, feeling the immense, crushing weight of her words. This little girl, abandoned by the world, living on the streets in ragged clothes, had carried the heaviest burden imaginable. Yet, instead of letting her trauma turn into bitterness, she had used it to save the life of a billionaire who had just tried to brush her off with $100 bill. "I didn't want the man in your car to do what my mama did," Ruby said softly, wiping her cheek with the frayed sleeve of her jacket. "I didn't want him to hurt you, because I know how it feels to wake up in the back seat and be all alone." Silas let out a slow, shaky breath. He looked at the luxury watch on his wrist, a timepiece that cost more than a suburban house. It felt heavy, useless. He looked at his private jet schedule on his phone, the millions of dollars riding on his Chicago meeting. None of it mattered. Not a single piece of his empire meant anything compared to the heartbreaking grace of the child standing in front of him. He slipped his phone into his pocket. "Ruby," Silas said, keeping his voice incredibly gentle, "you told me earlier that people are invisible in this city. You told me people don't look at you." She nodded slowly. "Well, I see you," Silas said, looking directly into her eyes. "I see you very clearly, and I am entirely in your debt." Ruby blinked, looking at him with cautious skepticism. "Are you going to try and give me that paper money again?" A small, genuine smile broke across Silas's face. No paper money. But I was wondering, since my flight is canceled and I suddenly find myself with a completely empty schedule, would you allow me to buy you lunch? Any place you want?" Ruby studied his face, looking for the trap. Finding none, her shoulders relaxed just a fraction. "There's a diner 2 blocks away. They make pancakes with chocolate chips, but they usually chase me away when I stand by the window." Silas stood up, adjusting his dark tie. He looked down at the brave, broken, beautiful little girl who had just shattered his isolated world. "I promise you," Silas said firmly, holding out his hand to her. no one is ever going to chase you away from a window again. Shall we? Ruby hesitated for a moment, looking at his clean, manicured hand. Then slowly, she pulled her small, dirt-stained hand out of her oversized pocket and placed it in his. "Okay," she said softly. Silas Thorne, the ruthless billionaire, turned his back on his black Rolls-Royce, took the hand of the little girl in the tattered blue jacket, and began walking down the street, feeling, for the first time in his life, that he was exactly where he was supposed to be.